Good evening, greetings from Lucknow. Now we start to show you some data on the COVID-19 pandemic of July 2020 to January 2021. We show you the case incidence and fatalities in Uttar Pradesh, Bihar and Kerala. This green line is Bihar, this is Uttar Pradesh, and that is Kerala. And the FLCCC, the Frontline COVID-19 Critical Care Alliance, when they presented this data to the US Senate, recommending ivermectin, they said that Bihar was taking ivermectin from beginning. Uttar Pradesh started taking it at this black point here, and Kerala did not take it. And this is evidence that ivermectin should have been taken for prophylaxis treatment of mild, moderate, and long haul cases of COVID-19. So let us try to establish whether or not ivermectin should have been taken. As you can see from this epidemiological plot, of course there can be 100 other explanations which explain this difference between the death rates and case incidence of between states. So now we show you, we try to make an Excel file, and in Excel file we try to collect data, an observational study data, trying to say who died and who survived in the ivermectin plus group versus only supportive treatment. We'll call it supportive treatment. Then doxycycline plus group versus supportive treatment, and then azithromycin plus group versus supportive treatment. We increase the size, zoom it up a little. So let us say 2 died here and 8 died here, 4 died here and 8 died here, and 8 died here. No, 6 died here and 8 died here. And supposing, let us say there were 20 people in each of the groups that we studied. So here 18 survived, here 12 survived, here 16 survived, here 12 survived, and here 14 survived, and here 12 survived. So now let us calculate the risks in each of these groups. risk of death. So here it is 2 upon 20. Calculated, we say, is equal to sum, bracket open, 2 upon 20. And we can copy this, Control C, and copy it here, Control V to get the risk in this group, then Control V to get the risk in this group, get the risk in this group, to get the risk in this group, and to get the risk in this group. Then what are the odds? Odds are is equal to sum 2 upon 18. Here this 18 would not contain the 2. So we say 2 upon 18. So here is the odds. We copy this calculation and we say here it is this, here it is this, here it is this, here it is this, and here it is this. Then we compare the risk ratios. Risk ratios, and this is equal to sum risk in the ivermectin plus group divided by risk in the no treatment group. Similarly, here we say is equal to sum bracket open, that means risk in the doxycycline plus group upon risk in the baseline group. Same way here we say is equal to sum which is risk in this versus risk in the supported group. So you see that the risk ratios is increasing. Only 25% would die if you give ivermectin as compared to support. Only 50% would die if you give doxycycline. Only 75% would die if you give erythromycin. So you can choose which treatment to give. Then there is something which is called as risk difference. Difference, and that is simply is equal to sum risk here minus risk in the supportive group. Same way here it is. Let's see what happens if we copy this, Control C, and we copy it here, Control V, and we copy it here, Control V. So this is the risk difference. Then we have a third measure of association which is called as odds ratio. So we come here, we say is equal to sum, and we divide this odds by this odds, and we get a number here, and we copy this and we say Control V here and we click Control V here. So you see, you can see which ivermectin, doxycycline, azithromycin, which should have been given. Now this odds ratio is a crude odds ratio, for it doesn't take care of other explanations of these point estimates. So, for example, if there were more asthmatics in the control group, these asthmatics would explain why more people died in the control group, So asthma here, which is the other explanation of the association or the result, is called as confounder. Other explanation of the result. So those confounders have to be controlled. The second important thing that you have to realize, besides the confounder, is that if same number of people would have died in the ivermectin and the support group, that means ivermectin was not effective. If we convert this 8 here, then you find that the risk ratio will immediately become 1. So no effect or null value is risk ratio of 1. So any risk ratio that crosses 1 is not significant. 1 means ivermectin doesn't help this way or that way. It doesn't increase the risk or decrease the risk. So we place again the number 2 here. And so you keep on getting this 0.25 risk. So after explaining this table, let us try to tell you how to deal with confounder. So you remember these numbers. Then we move on to an XLS file in which we place confounders also. Other explanations of results. So here is the patients 1 to 30 and 2 means controls and 1 means ivermectin plus group. And these are the dead and alive. And here is a possible confounder 1, let us say asthma, which explains why more deaths could have occurred in the control group. And this is another variable which we say, let us say, co-intervention by steroids, which if more in the ivermectin group would increase the effect of ivermectin. So these are variables different between cases and control, between exposed and unexposed, which can alter our perception of the estimate of risk ratio and odds ratios. So we study this Excel file and we study it like this. We open the EpiInfo, we use classic, we say read, we say that it is an XLS file, we say that the data, we can browse for data also, we can say browse, and when we browse, we can say ivermectin test data and we say open this, and when we say OK, it says is the data in sheet 1, we say yes it is, and we say OK. So it tells us that there are 30 records, and we first of all list the variables to see that we are studying the same file. Then we close this list and we make tables. Exposure is type of treatment. Exposure is type of treatment, and outcome variable is dead or alive. And when we draw this table, we get an estimation of risk. 2 upon 15 is risk, 2 upon 13 is odds, and 2 upon 13 divided by 8 upon 7 is odds ratio, and 2 upon 15 divided by 8 upon 15 is risk ratio. And these are point estimates from this study. But what we get additionally is this 95% confidence interval. So this is the point estimate, 0.13 of odds ratio, 0.25 of risk ratio. And this confidence interval says that if we repeat the study 100 times, 95 out of 100 times, the value will range between 0.02, the value of odds ratio will range between 0.02 to 0.81. And as this confidence interval does not include the null value of 1, that's why this odds ratio is significant. Another way of testing significance is saying that the p-value is 0.02 or 0.05, which means that there is only 5% chance that the point estimate that we are seeing will cross the null value. So you can say significance by 95% confidence interval not crossing the null value, and by showing the p-value also. But you would notice that in this table we have not dealt with confounders. So these are crude odds ratios. All right. Now we'll teach you how to deal with confounders, known confounders. The data of those confounders which we have. So we say the outcome variable is dead or alive. We say the other variable is treatment. Let us place treatment first. So this is univariate, single explanatory variable explaining the outcome variable. Still not dealing with confounders. Okay, and when we say this, we get an odds ratio of 0.13 and a 95% confidence of 0.22 to 0.81. It is exactly the same that you saw with the 2 by 2 table. So that means both our estimates of crude odds ratios are correct. Now we go on to test logistic regression, and in the logistic regression we are now controlling for confounders also. So we say dead or alive, we say other variable, first variable is treatment, and then we want to explain it by confounder 1 and confounder 2. We want to control for them. So now the results that we get would be relation of treatment to dead and alive, and this relation will be controlled for confounder 1 and confounder 2. Let's see what happens. So we see this, the odds ratio has moved further away from 1. So the treatment type has become more significant, and confounder 1 you see has a value of more than 1. So it's actually a risk. If this confounder is more in the control group, it would explain more deaths in the control group. But this confounder is less than 1. So it will actually prevent deaths. It is acting against deaths. And here are the p-values. For example, if you get 0.03 here, it means that there is only 3% chance that the odds ratio values in 100 trials would cross 1 or the null value. Now this deals with only known and unknown confounders. Known confounders. If we know the value of confounder 1 and confounder 2, but there may be many variables that may explain which are unknown. For that, we have to do what is called as random allocation. So we shut this up, open our board again, and show you that the random allocation, so this is our source population in the community. These are the patients that were hospitalized. So this is our source population and this is our study population. Now this study population are the more serious patients. So you cannot generalize the results of the study population to the source population. This generalizability is also called as external validity. So the only way to ensure external validity is random selection over a sufficient sample size. So you remember this term, random selection. Then you do random allocation. If you randomly allocate over a sufficient sample size, remember the word allocation, to the two treatment groups, ivermectin plus and ivermectin minus, then ivermectin plus and ivermectin minus groups would be equalized on all known and unknown confounders, so that the only possible explanation of the results would be the treatment, ivermectin plus and ivermectin minus. And then you define these groups adequately, the dose, the frequency, everything, and the other drugs that the person is taking. So you define the treatment group so well that anybody can copy you just by seeing your paper. Then you follow them up. So follow up must be for sufficient time for all outcomes to occur. You don't want only change in CPR or starting to improve. You want died or not died, right up to the last. So follow up for sufficient time. Then there are problems in follow up. The problems in follow up is loss to follow up, the missing values. Then there are three other. Randomization has dealt with one C, that is confounding. There are three other C's. One is co-intervention. Let us say one group took more steroids, so that co-intervention would alter the result. The second is crossover or contamination. Ivermectin minus group, some person may have started taking ivermectin. And the third is loss of compliance. They stopped taking ivermectin in between. So confounding, co-intervention, crossover, compliance. These are the 4 C's that you have to remember in conducting of the randomized controlled trials. Then you have to measure the outcomes, outcome 1 and outcome 2 in the two groups. The measurement has to be preferably objective, because if you are measuring, let us say by CPR values, creatinine phosphokinase values. Then the machine cannot be biased. But if some observer is measuring, that means you are measuring subjective, then patient, if he says that he is belonging to the treatment group, he may say, I am feeling much better. So the patient does not know which group he belongs, so patient should be blind to the group, and same way the observer should be blind. So this is called as double blinding. And this blinding is to which treatment group you belong. You don't know whether you are in the placebo group or the treatment group. So this double blinding would avoid what is called as measurement bias. Then you compare the two treatments. This is analysis. And you report both the point estimate, that means the magnitude of association, odds ratio and risk ratio, and you also report the significance of association. That means you report confidence interval or p-value. Then you must disseminate a randomized controlled trial, because if you don't disseminate it, such a valuable data is not used by the world. So these are this is the small diagram which tells you how to conduct a randomized controlled trial and what to do when. Then I will show you how to randomly allocate to treatment groups. You see, these are our 30 patients. And we have to allocate 15 to treatment control and 15 to the ivermectin plus group. So in this column entitled RAND, we say is equal to RAND bracket open bracket close, and we want a value up to 30. So this is a value, one of the values. We copy it, Control C, we copy it right up to here and say Control V, and then very simply we select this column and this column, we combine it like this, and we say data, and we say sort, and we say sort on the RAND. So it tells you that you give treatment 2 for 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, but the 6th you give treatment, and same way 7th you give treatment. So it is randomly allocated to the 2 treatment groups. You can have 3 treatment groups, 4 treatment groups, and you can randomly allocate in this manner that we have taught you.